So GPT 5.6 just released this week, and Fable 5 has been extended until July 12th within your active subscription. So what a good time to actually put the two most powerful models from Anthropic and OpenAI head to head. For this demo, I wanted to experiment and build a landing page with scroll interaction tied to real WebGL animation. And honestly, I think this is one of the hardest things you can test a model on, because behind the scene, WebGL is a lot of math, shaders, protocol systems, real-time GPU code, and if the model gets even one part of that wrong, the whole animation just breaks or stutters. So it felt like the perfect stress test. Here's how the idea actually came to me. Lately, I've been building these cinematic scrolling experiences, and I was having a really good time doing it with Fable 5. So I wanted to push that further and combine it with WebGL and 3.js. Quick side note if you're not familiar, WebGL is the low-level API that lets a browser talk directly to your GPU, and 3.js is a library built on top of it that makes all of that way easier to work with. So basically, WebGL is the engine, and 3.js is what makes driving it manageable. I wanted a landing page that actually felt alive. So instead of using a video that you just control with your scroll position, I wanted to see if I could get the same feeling but with a real WebGL animation reacting underneath it. So in this video, I'll walk you through the 11 prompts I used to generate this landing page from scratch, and I'll share the file in the description so you can download it and try it in your own workflow. For this experiment, I'll be using Claude Code paired with the Fable 5 model, and is going head-to-head with Codex paired with the new GPT 5.6 Sol model. And just to be clear, the point of this is not to be biased toward one workflow or one model. I just wanted to see for myself how the two strongest models out there actually compare on the same task using the exact same prompt with zero manual edits. And at the end, I'll also show you a quick preview of the same experiment run on lighter models, Sonnet 5 from Anthropic and GPT 5.6 Terra from OpenAI. So let's begin. All right, so here's how this is going to work. I'm going to put Codex and Claude Code side by side, and I'm going to paste all 11 prompts into both in sequence and in real time. So this way we can get a clean, fair comparison of how each model actually handles the exact same task. First rule, no cheating, no editing. I'm using the strongest model on each side, and once a prompt goes in, whatever comes out is what stays. So on the OpenAI side, I'll be selecting GPT 5.6 Sol inside Codex. And quick note here, Codex actually gives you 3 flavors of GPT 5.6 to choose from. Sol is the flagship, the strongest one. Terra is a step down from that, still solid but built more for speed. And Luna is the lightest version, meant for quick, simple tasks. For this test, obviously I'm going with Sol, since I want the strongest model possible on both sides. I also made sure the reasoning effort was set to high. And on the Anthropic side, inside Claude Code, I'll be running Fable 5 also with the effort set to high. So now I paste the very first prompt into both platforms at the same time and hit enter. Just as a reminder, this first prompt is the foundation prompt. It's asking both models to set up the entire design system, the colors, the font, the whole mood of the page, and build the smooth scrolling engine and lay out all 8 sections with the real copy already written in. So basically, both models need to turn nothing into a fully structured, fully styled page. No WebGL yet, that comes later. So Codex finished this in 7 minutes and 52 seconds. Claude Code took a bit over 15 minutes for the exact same task. So right off the bat, Fable 5 took almost double the time to generate the foundation. Let's check the result. So on the left side here, that's Codex, and on the right side, that's Claude Code. So right away, both of these are following the same blueprint. You've got the fixed navigation up top, logo on the left, a reserve button on the right. Then as you scroll, you move through the same 8 section in order. The hero with the big headline, a short pin statement right after it, then a row of 6 cards you scroll through sideways, a featured hall section, the visit and ticket section, a list of program events, a short manifesto, and finally, the closing call to action with the footer underneath. On the right edge, there's a thin rail that means to track which section you're on as you scroll. And down in the corners, there's a small heads-up display, sort of like a mission control readout, though that part isn't functional yet at this stage, since that's tied to the WebGL layer we build later. So structurally, at this point, it's really just about how clean each model organized all of this, the spacing, the typography, how premium the whole thing already feels before we added a single particle. So that's it for prompt 1. So now let's repeat the same process. I'll copy prompt number 2, the entity, and paste it into both platforms. So this is really where the actual test begins. This prompt asks each model to build one single WebGL particle system, 1,000 of individual points that can morph between 8 completely different shapes as you scroll through the page. So instead of 8 separate animations stitched all together, it has to be one continuous entity that smoothly transforms from one form into the next, all tied directly to your scroll position. So Codex finished in 5 minutes and 54 seconds, and this time, similar to before, Claude Code took almost 12 minutes for the exact same task. So again, almost double the time, one more time. At this stage, it's pretty clear Codex has the speed advantage. So let's check the result. For some reason, the iteration from Codex doesn't seem to load anymore, so we'll have to look into that later. So let's go to the right side first, the demo from Fable 5. Just a quick recap. In other words, prompt 2 is the one that asks for a single morphing particle entity, 1,000 of points that reshape themselves into 8 different forms as you move down the page. At this stage, a few of those shapes are already fully built: the star, the planet, the ocean, and the DNA helix, while the rest are still just simple placeholders that gets detailed in later prompts. So now back to Codex. I just asked it to fix the loading issue, and now it seems to be working. So this is the second iteration after fixing the one problem from prompt number 2. So now let's continue with prompt number 3, post pipeline and core interaction. This one adds the cinematic layer on top of the entity we just built. We're talking about things like a glow effect, motion trails behind the particles, and the ability to actually click into the entity so it bursts apart and reforms. And this is also the prompt where I make sure people notice they can click on it in the first place, with a small hint and a subtle pulse every time you scroll into a new section. So this time, it took Codex 7 minutes and almost 10 minutes for Claude Code. So the gap is a bit smaller this time around, but Codex is still ahead. Let's see the result. So just to explain it again, in other words, this prompt is really about making the particle feels reactive. It's not just a shape sitting there anymore. Now there's bloom, there's trailing motion whenever it moves, and you can literally click into it and watch it disintegrate and pull itself back together. let's continue with prompt number 4, the hero and the gyroscope. This one was a smaller, more focused task. It turns the very first shape, the one sitting behind the headline, into a gyroscope, 3 rings spinning independently, each at its own speed, each its own color, with a warm glowing core sitting right in the middle. So this time, it took Codex 3 minutes and 35 seconds and a little over 6 minutes for Claude Code. So 4 prompts in now, it's almost a clear pattern. Claude Code just seems to consistently take almost double the time compared to Codex. Let's check out the result. So again, in other words, this prompt is really just about that opening shape. Instead of some generic spinning form, it's now 3 independent rings, each turning at a different rate, wrap around a glowing core, so the very first thing you see on the page already feels alive and intentional. Alright, let's move on to prompt number 5, ignition, the charging star. This prompt ties the second section text directly to the star shape. So as you scroll through that sentence, the star literally charges up. It gets brighter, more intense, the closer you get to the last line. So the animation isn't just playing on its own, it's actually reacting to exactly where you are in the text. So this time, Codex took 2 minutes and 32 seconds, and Claude Code took a little over 6 minutes. Let's see the result. So again, this one connects the word on screen to the star's energy. The more of the sentence you read, the more charged up that star gets, until it basically peaks right as you hit the last line. And here's my honest opinion at this point. So after 5 prompts, Codex has had the clear speed advantage almost every single time, nearly double consistently. But when it comes to the actual result, right now, I think Claude Code has the clear edge. It just feels more alive, more colorful, more vibrant. But honestly, the race is far from over. We'll see the full picture by the end. Now let's move into prompt number 6, World, the Turning Planet. This one connects the horizontal scrolling gallery, the 6 era cards, straight to the planet shape. So as you scroll sideways through the cards, the planet is supposed to rotate right along, with almost like each card is turning the globe a little bit further. So here's where things get interesting. On the Fable 5 side, we've got a real problem. The horizontal scrolling isn't working, and the cards are just stacked on top of each other instead of laid out side by side. Meanwhile, on the Codex side, this was implemented properly right away. So like I said at the beginning, no cheating. That means I'm not going to go in and manually fix this for Claude Code. We're just going to continue forward and see what happens with the next prompt. But here's something I noticed. When I actually scroll through the live preview inside Claude Code itself, the horizontal scrolling works completely fine. So it looks like this might just be a small bug in how the exported HTML file is being viewed, rather than an actual problem with the underlying code. So with that in mind, let's move on to prompt number 7, and maybe implementing that one ends up fixing the issue along the way. So now, prompt number 7, water the living sea. This one turns the ocean into something that actually feels alive. The waves keep rolling continuously on their own, and your scroll position pushes the tide forward, almost like you're the one controlling how far the water moves. On top of that, there's a real photograph in this section that slowly pans from top to bottom as you scroll through it. Let's see how this one turned out. So again, in other words, this prompt is about making the water section feel less static. It's not just a wave shape sitting there, it's actually rolling and shifting tide to your scroll. And even the photo behind the text is quietly moving with you. And once again, it looks like we're still having the same issue with the horizontal scrolling in the browser. So we just have to come back and fix that later. So now for prompt number 8, live the turning helix. This one is about the visit and ticket section, and it turns the shape behind it into a DNA helix. This prompt makes it spin slowly and correctly around its own axis, so it never looks twisted or broken at any angle. It also cleans up a small text issue, making sure the headline in that section never awkwardly wraps onto a strange line break. Let's see how it turned out. So again, this one is really about making sure the helix reads as an actual, recognizable double helix no matter how it's rotating, and just tightening up that one piece of text so that section feels a bit more polished. Let's move on to prompt number 9, flight the comet. This one turns the shape into a comet, and honestly, this is just a fun one. It literally ties your scroll position to the comet's flight path. So as you scroll down through the section, you're the one actually flying that comet across the sky, tail trailing behind it the whole way. Let's see the result. And again, instead of the comet just animating on its own, your scroll is what pushes it forward along its path. Scroll down, it flies forward. Scroll back up, and it retraces its way back. Now for prompt number 10, signal the transmission. This one turns the shape into something like a radio signal, rings of light pulsing outward from a core in violet, sitting behind a short manifesto. And I also had it choreograph the text itself. So each line of the manifesto appears one at a time as you scroll through the section. Let's check it out. So again, this one's less about a solid shape and more about a broadcast ring expanding outward over and over, like a signal being sent out into space, timed right along with the word appearing on the screen. Finally, we're going to paste prompt number 11. This is the very last one, and it brings everything together. The final shape becomes planet Earth, slowly rotating with an actual day side and a night side. On top of that, this prompt adds a full ambient sound design you can turn on, some final animation polish across the entire page, and make sure everything still works properly on mobile and for anyone who prefers reduced motion. So this last one took a bit more time on both sides, over 12 minutes for Codex and almost 17 minutes for Claude Code. And honestly, that makes sense. This isn't really just one feature like the earlier prompts, it's basically several systems bundled into a single task. You got the Earth shape itself, a whole audio engine built from scratch, some text animation effects, and a full pass, making sure everything holds up on mobile and for accessibility. So of course, it's going to take longer than, say, turning a shape into a comet. Now, I'm not going to show you the demo just yet. We'll get to the full side-by-side result in a moment. Now, let's talk about usage on both platforms, because honestly, this matters just as much as speed or quality. Let's start with Codex. So looking at my usage there, I was able to build this entire landing page in one day, and I never once hit the 5-hour usage limit. I've also still got plenty of weekly usage left over, so that's not going to be an issue for any future tasks. And honestly, OpenAI has always been known to be pretty generous with their tokens and usage limits, so if you're someone who builds a lot, that's a real advantage. Now, let's look at the Anthropic side. This landing page was also built in a single day, but I actually hit the session limit twice. The first time I reached 100%, I only had to wait about an hour for the reset. Usually, if you hit 100% that fast, you're looking at a full 5-hour window before it resets. So I got a bit lucky there. After that session reset, I went right back up and hit 98% again. And then looking at the weekly limit across all models, I started at 0%, And just from this one experiment alone, this single landing page, it used almost a quarter of my entire weekly allowance. And just to be clear, I'm on the max plan, the 5x tier, not the bigger 20x one. But here's the thing. If I had been using a regular Pro subscription instead, the one around $30 a month, the same tier I have with OpenAI, running the Fable 5 model on that plan would have been rough. Fable 5 is really expensive to run. Sometimes just 2 or 3 prompts in and you're already at 100% within just a few minutes. So realistically, with just a regular Pro subscription, I wouldn't have been able to finish this experiment without a lot of waiting around. So that's really the global picture for both platforms. Each one has its strengths and each one has its weaknesses. So now let's take a look at the final result generated from each platform, starting with Codex and GPT-5.6 Sol. I'm going to preview this inside a terminal instead of just double clicking the index.html file, and there's a real reason for that. This page loads 3.js through an ES module import map, and browsers actually block that kind of module loading when you open a file directly from your file system. So if I just double click the HTML file, the WebGL simply wouldn't load. You need an actual local server running behind it. So here's how that works. First, I type cd and navigate it into the project folder. Then second line, I ran python 3-m http.server and gave it the port 4173. Then I just opened my browser and went to localhost 4173 to preview it. That's it for Codex. So right away, I noticed a small issue on the headline once we're on full screen. Earlier, when we had the two windows side by side, the width was smaller, so we never actually caught this. So that's something that's not great right now. But overall, I feel like everything is properly timed with the scrolling. The morphing between shapes is synchronized with the pacing of how you scroll. That part is really good. Nice colors too, and overall, a strong foundation with the content itself. Now, what about mobile? So here's a quick way to preview that in the browser. If you're on Chrome, you can hit Option plus Command plus I. That opens up Chrome's Developer Tools panel. And from there, if you hit Command plus Shift plus M, that toggles on the device toolbar, which lets you simulate different phone and tablet screens right inside the browser. So here I'm just selecting iPhone 14 Pro Max. And if we scroll through, you can see that all the WebGL shapes still appears properly, even inside this much smaller window. And if you're on Safari instead, it's even simpler. You just click Develop, then enter Responsive Design Mode, and that's it. You select your device from there and you can preview it on mobile just as easily. So this really shows how capable Codex is. Even the whole thing was built in full screen, it adapted to mobile right away without any extra work. Now, sure, don't expect 100% perfect result straight out of a strong foundation like this. There's always a polished phase afterward where you go in and fix all those small details and issues along the way, and maybe on mobile too. But so far, pacing through all 11 prompts, one after another, with zero manual edits in between, this is really a strong result. So before we get into that, remember earlier back with Fable 5, we ran into that issue with the horizontal scrolling where the cards were stacking on top of each other instead of sitting side by side. So here's something interesting. It turns out that was actually a pretty strange bug. On Chrome, we still see that exact same issue, but if you switch over to Safari, the issue is completely gone. and that section behaves exactly how it's supposed to, scrolling sideways just like it should. Now, let's preview the result from Fable 5. Again, I use the terminal. First, I type cd and navigate it into the project folder, same as before. Then, for the second line, I just type npx serve. Quick difference here compared to what I use for Codex. Python's HTTP server works fine, but you have to already know your port and type out the full local address yourself. npx serve is a bit more convenient because it spins up the server and immediately hands you a clickable local address with the port already built in. So from there, I just opened my browser, went to localhost, and in this case, my port was 53496. And now, here's the final result. Wow! Right away, this is really eye-catching compared to the GPT-5.6 Sol iteration. And not in the sense that the design itself is different, but more in how it was built. Just watching the particles move, it really feels more alive. The contrast is really strong and it looks very premium. And when you scroll through the transition between sections, the morphing between each shape feels really natural. This landing page also comes with a lot more interaction built in. When you click on the shape, it bursts apart and then reforms back together. And when you hover your mouse over it, the particles actually bend away from your cursor, almost like it's reacting to you being there. And what's crazy? We pasted all 11 prompts back to back, no edits, and this already looks like a solid 10 out of 10. Sure, if you take the time to go through all the small details, you could still make a few minor adjustments, but so far, the result from Fable 5 is the clear winner, and honestly, by far. Even though GPT 5.6 Sol produced a really good iteration, I can clearly say the race was even close by the end. And if we look at the responsiveness, everything works perfectly on a smaller screen too. Before we end this video, I just want to show you the same experiment but run on lighter models. So for this first iteration, I used GPT 5.6 Terra, the model that sits right in the middle of OpenAI's lineup. It's not as powerful as Sol, the flagship, but it's a step above Luna, the lightweight option. So think of it as the balanced, faster choice, just with less raw capability than the top tier model. So here's the result. And honestly, the result is pretty bad. Besides the strong foundation we got from prompt number 1, the rest just isn't usable, even if you try to manually fix it. There are no particles at all, there's no morphing between shapes, no transition between sections, there's no contrast on the shape, and honestly, there's no life in any of the animation. So at this point, I wouldn't even waste time trying to manually edit everything. You'll honestly be better off just starting over with a different model entirely. Now let's look at the iteration made with Sonnet 5. This model was released about 2 weeks ago, so it's actually the newest release coming out after Fable 5. So here just a quick explanation. Opus 4.8 was Anthropic's larger, most capable flagship model. Sonnet 5, on the other hand, is built to be faster and lighter, still very capable, but more of an everyday efficient option rather than the top-tier reasoning power you get out of something like Fable 5 or Opus 4.8. So here's the result. Okay, so this is definitely better than what we got from GPT 5.6 Terra, but for now, I'd say it's average. The luminosity on the entity is way too strong, and that creates a real lack of contrast with the text. It kind of pulls your focus entirely onto the shape and away from the actual content. And I also noticed the shapes aren't really matched properly to their respective section, not the way we saw with Sol or Fable 5. but at least it got the main idea of the landing page right. So I think with a few edits, this could still turn into a decent result. So with that said, I just want to close this out with a few final thoughts. Honestly, the hype around Fable 5 is real. I've been seeing a lot on social media lately, people building amazing stuff with this model, sometimes even one-shotting entire projects. And for this specific task, it really did take it on pretty easily, just by pasting detailed prompts one after another with basically no manual edits at the end. But I also think this experiment says something important. Not every model can handle the same kind of task the same way. We just saw that firsthand. GPT-5.6 Sol and Fable 5 both produce really strong results, while the lighter models, Terra and even Sonnet 5, clearly struggle more with something this demanding. And I want to be honest here, this experiment is not proof that Fable 5 is always going to win over OpenAI's model. For a different kind of task, GPT 5.6 Sol might come out ahead instead. That's something worth actually testing properly in another video. So if you enjoyed this experiment, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment letting me know which version you prefer and which workflow you personally use. So I'll see you in the next video.